Welcome to today's show, Legacy Living, Make Your Life Count. I'm your host, Dr. Gloria Burgess, passionate, inspirational speaker, author, poet, and entrepreneur. Welcome to Legacy Living, Make Your Life Count. I am so delighted that you joined me today. I want to give a big thank you to those of you who are listening today. And here's a great big shout out to all of you listening around the world. I'm delighted and so grateful that you tuned in. I sure hope you're enjoying a fabulous day today and that you're having a fantastic week, because you know what? In the grand song of the universe, life is very short. It's short, sweet, and very precious. So I hope you're making a difference in your own life, because when you do, you also make a difference in someone else's life. Now, a lot of folks want to make their life count for something, and they ask me, Dr. Gloria, how do you do that? Well, it's really very simple, very simple. You make your life count day by day, step by step, moment by moment, every single day, 365, 24/7. That's what Legacy Living, Make Your Life Count, is all about. Now, you can learn more about Legacy Living, Make Your Life Count by visiting the Gloria Burgess website. That's Gloria, B as in boy, URGESS.com, the Gloria Burgess website. Again, that's Gloria Burgess, BURGESS.com, or by visiting my Facebook page, and that's facebook.com/DR for Dr. DRGLORIA BURGESS PhD /. Now, I have a very special show for you today. Today's podcast is all about poetry. That's right, poetry. Here's what I know about poets and poetry. Words have power, vitality, and soul. Words have the power to bless or to blaspheme. Words have the power to hurt or to heal. Words make a difference. Words make a difference in everybody's life. In fact, our focus today is the power of poetry for leaders. And by leaders, you know that I mean every single one of us, right? Because we're all in charge of ourselves, right? Now, when most of us think about poetry, we think about beauty and music and wonder, right? We think about all of those aspects of language. But what we don't think about is the connection between poetry and leadership. Well, today, I want to help us understand the power of poetry in its own right and the power of blessing that poetry offers, especially to leaders, to real people just like you and me. Now, I've been a poet for a long, long time. In fact, I've written several books of poetry, and my poems are published in a number of poetry anthologies. I've also been a leader for many, many years, and in that time, I have come to deeply appreciate how poetry can have a profound impact on leaders in any context, in any setting where there are people. Now, I share my poetry in business settings, in healthcare, human services, IT, in schools with students and teachers, with administrators, firefighters, police officers, with financial analysts, social workers, in foster care, with other artists, in families, in communities, and in government at the city, county, tribal, state, and national level. Let me tell you something. Poetry rocks in all of those places. Now, along the way, I learned about poet David Whyte's work. David is a wonderful Welsh poet who now makes his home in the Pacific Northwest of the United States, very close to where I live. In a lovely book called Leading from Within, David wrote notes about poetry and leading. Now, this book focuses specifically on leading from within. And today, I want to share several poems with you from that book, and in upcoming shows, I'll share some of my own poems. Now, the poems I'll share with you today are all about poetry and leading. In many ways, they reflect and mirror the many threads of my own life and work. In fact, you've heard me talk about many of these threads and themes. You've heard me talk about them on this show. These are the themes of gratitude, faith, listening, generosity, love, integrity, healing, hope, and possibility. So before I share the poems with you, I want to share a little bit from David Whyte's afterword to this book that I just mentioned, Leading from Within. But before I do that, I want to take just a moment to welcome you. If you're just joining us, I'm your host, Dr. Gloria, and this is Legacy Living, Make Your Life Count. I want to extend a special welcome to those of you who are joining my podcast, or if you're joining Talk Network Radio for the very first time. I'm so excited to have you listening in today, and I'm deeply honored that you've allowed me to be part of your day so you can be inspired by ideas and resources to make your life count. Today's program is all about poetry and leading. We're going to talk about the power of words to help us become more of who we are, to live more fully into our wholeness, our uniqueness, and our magnificence. You are in for a very special treat. You don't want to miss a single word of this podcast. So, grab your earbuds, put on your walking shoes, or find yourself a comfortable chair and a nice cool glass of water or a cup of tea or coffee. We're going to have a great time. Okay, let's jump into today's show. Now, as I mentioned earlier, I will share several poems with you today. And before I share those poems, I want to share just a little bit from David Whyte's afterword to the book called Leading from Within. David reminds us that poetry is the art of speaking and listening at one and the same time. Poetry is the art of speaking and listening at one and the same time. It is an art form that can illustrate clear and important milestones on the path to creating the more relational and conversational identity that is necessary for our future. Good poetry refuses to be read quickly or to be bent toward a too specific meaning. Good poetry demands an entry into the timeless and untrammeled in order to comprehend it, and therefore is incorruptible by time-bound worlds on which we bring it to bear. David goes on to say that good poetry offers the possibility of a human identity that can be at home in a complex world without having to overwhelm or destroy it in the process. It also, and very happily, asks us to drink from pleasurable streams that nourish the core human being who is living at the center of all the work and responsibility that leadership entails. As Robert Frost declares in Two Tramps in Mud Time, only where love and need are one, and the work is play for mortal stakes, is the deed ever really done for heaven and future's sake. Wow. Two Tramps in Mud Time. I'm going to read those lines again. Only where love and need are one, and the work is play for mortal stakes, is the deed ever really done for heaven and the future's sakes. Leading from Within is a collection of poetry and poets illuminated so well by the comments of those whose sense of leadership has been sustained by both the writers and what they have so courageously written that we might take the liberty of quoting Frost again from his poem, Directive. Here are your waters and your watering place. Drink and be whole again beyond confusion. Now, poetry is a place where we can drink deeply. Indeed, poetry is water for the thirsty of soul and spirit. The first poem I'd like to invite us to drink from and into is an excerpt from a book by Reinhold Niebuhr. The book is called The Irony About American History. This is a short excerpt. The words pack a lot of power and a lot of punch in just a few lines. An excerpt from a book called The Irony About American History. Nothing that is worth doing can be achieved in our lifetime. Therefore, we must be saved by hope. Nothing which is true or beautiful or good makes complete sense in any immediate context of history. Therefore, we must be saved by faith. Nothing we do, however virtuous, can be accomplished alone. Therefore, we are saved by love. Now, each poem in Leading from Within, each poem is accompanied by a narrative reflection, words written by leaders from diverse contexts. I want to share Rosemary Giordano Shore's reflections about the poem I just read. Shore is the founder and former chairman and CEO of Children First, Incorporated, the nation's largest backup child care company. When she wrote her reflections, Shore served on the national board for the Center for Courage and Renewal and was a recent recipient of a national award recognizing her as Entrepreneur of the Year. Here is Shore's reflection. I was the first in my family to go to college. On my first day, my mother held me in a warm embrace, looked me in the eye, and said, "With this education, you will be able to do anything you want to do. Be sure